The San Francisco 49ers have found themselves with a lot of cap space in 2023, which actually is a bit of a surprise because I don't think we were really expecting that to be the case. But as you guys already know, the San Francisco 49ers made key restructurings of multiple veterans contracts, such as Trent Williams, George Kittle, and Eric Armstead. And of course, extending Nick Bosa and the way it's been backloaded also clears up cap space in 2023. So after it's all said and done and all these moves that the San Francisco 49ers have made these last couple days, the 49ers now have the most cap space in the NFL in 2023. Which is a dramatic change when they were close to being at the bottom of the NFL not too long ago. So, that being said, what do the 49ers do with this money? What do they do with this space? Now, we can talk about this from a multitude of different ways. Obviously, I have thoughts and opinions on what I would like the 49ers to do, but let's talk about some logical things that most likely will be the outcome. And then we'll talk about some fun scenarios where we could see the 49ers getting a little crazy with some of this funny money that they got to spend potentially this year and how they manage that. But the most logical thing I would say that the 49ers would do with this money is they would roll it over to 2024. So what you can do with this cap space is the unused cap space you can roll into the next year. And as we know, the 49ers will have an opportunity to extend both Brandon Aiyuk and Talanoa Hufanga. So that's probably going to be the most logical idea, and they are up against it already based on the 2024 cap. So the most logical sense would be to, hey, they probably created this space to help roll over into the following year to help with cap alleviation for next season, as well as extending other key players, like we talked about, the players that we mentioned. So that's probably the most logical. It's not as fun though to talk about some of the other scenarios that we could cook up with because obviously the 49ers do have the option right now to take on a big time contract. They could theoretically front load a deal potentially for this year. That way, that the cap is able to be more manageable later on down the road, and you could take advantage of all this space that you have. So you can maybe go trade for a particular player. Obviously, if you've watched this channel before, you know I am a huge Brian Burns fan. And we heard from Jeremy Fowler not that long ago that Brian Burns and the Panthers weren't able to come together on a contract negotiation. Brian Burns is expected to play tomorrow, but they aren't expected to pay him. So that might make him available potentially for a trade because, as you guys know, Brian Burns, if he does not sign a contract extension, he will either get franchise tagged in almost like a sign and trade or he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So his future with the Panthers, if he does not sign a contract extension, he might be an opportunity to buy Brian Burns because if they can't come together on an agreement, it would make most sense for the Panthers to be able to recoup assets in return. And the longer that he goes on into the season, they won't be able to recoup as much. Like just like last year, they got offered 2 first round picks for Brian Burns from the Rams. Panthers declined. I don't think Brian Burns is worth 2 first round picks right now because whatever team is trading for him has to pay him, and that is going to decrease the value of Brian Burns. Whereas before, you would have got him for half a year last year, full year this year on the 5th-year option. You had way more flexibility in regards to getting Brian Burns. Well, that makes him, I think, a little bit cheaper. So the 49ers obviously have tons of ties to the Carolina Panthers. Steve Wilks, former defensive coordinator, they already have the groundwork with the front office because the 49ers did trade for Christian McCaffrey. So there's already a synergy there between an ability to get a deal done of a player of this magnitude. So that groundwork has been played. And we know that Brian Burns has met with these other 49ers players before, so he would be a good fit here. He really would. He would be a great locker room guy, great personality, great presence. So from all of those different types of things, he would be a phenomenal fit. And, I think you could get him for a somewhat reasonable price, opposed to what he was potentially going to get last year, where the Rams offered 2 first rounders. So we'll see. But there's other options as well. I've heard a lot of people talk about Chandler Jones. Do the 49ers go after Chandler Jones? And I would imagine you get Chandler Jones for dirt cheap right now. He is having what appears to be, I don't know what else to call it other than a bit of a mental health episode with what he's posting on social media, the clear drama that is going on between him and the organization, the head coach, general manager. There's something going down with Chandler Jones and the Raiders right now, and it doesn't look like he's even allowed in the building or will play for them anytime soon. So there's clearly something going on there off the field. Something tells me that would be enough to scare the 49ers away from attempting to give up any assets for him unless it was legitimately some late round picks or something like that. But other than that, I do not see the 49ers really going after Chandler Jones. So what other options are there available that you could probably trade for someone? I've heard a lot of people talk about upgrading the offensive line, right? Going out and getting a right tackle. This is my pushback on trying to upgrade the right tackle. When you have good to great offensive linemen, you typically don't let those guys go because, as you've seen across the league, offensive line play and good offensive line play is rare. In fact, in the NFL, it's really hard to find good offensive linemen. So when teams find them, it's very rare that they're willing to trade them. Typically, they only trade them if a contract is coming up and they don't plan on paying it or something of that nature. Kind of like what we talked about with Brian Burns. If there's like a contract dispute or something, that's typically when you'll see a player get traded. I mean, we saw Laramie Tunsil get traded. We've seen guys like Orlando Brown get traded. So it's happened, but it's rare. And especially the tackle position. When you have a good to, and I see people asking about an elite tackle. If you have an elite right tackle, you're not trading your elite right tackle. Like the Eagles would probably say no to every single trade offer that they got from Lane Johnson. Like it just doesn't make sense for them to trade a player of that caliber because it's so rare to come across elite right tackles, elite left tackles. So I understand the thought process, but I also find it to be a much more challenging situation. Also, too, on top of that, when you look at Colton McKivitz, you look at what he's getting paid, you look at the value that they have in him being a guy who does have some starting experience, not a ton, but again, the 49ers are a run first, predicated on play action. They aren't a 7-step drop team that needs to rely on straight up pass protection. So they can mask and hide Colton McKivitz within the scheme pretty well with quick passing game, running game, and play action. So I understand the idea. And again, I'm always one to have an elite offensive line. I'm not seeing where we would get this person, how much it would cost. And again, out of any position on an NFL roster, offensive line is one of probably the least plug and play positions in the NFL. You have to know the offense inside and out. The 49ers run a extremely complex running game. You would have to trade for someone who at least probably has some familiarity with the verbiage or the scheme. And again, it's not a plug and play position. So even if you were to go out and trade for a tackle, you're probably not playing them for a couple weeks potentially. So an in-season trade outside an injury where you have to make a move, I find it more challenging. I understand the thought process of wanting to upgrade the O-line. However, I do find it more challenging. So you can also look at the cornerback position. Could the 49ers find a suitor for anyone who's selling a cornerback? Obviously, the 49ers have Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, and then outside of that, we have some question marks. So could they potentially be looking to add more cornerback depth or a starting cornerback for that matter? So I would say those positions seem like more likely positions to target defensive line, specifically edge and cornerback. The reason why I would go and try to take advantage of the situation that's happening with the Panthers is because that doesn't happen very often. It really doesn't. To find a player with those rare traits and rare qualities to be able to have pure speed off the edge on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Again, you reference that 2019 49ers NFL defensive the 49ers defensive line in 2019. D Ford, first step get off. When D Ford was on the field, the 49ers had so much success. And Brian Burns would be the closest thing to D Ford that we have seen on a 49ers defensive line. So if you put a guy like Brian Burns with Hargrave, with Eric Armstead, and Nick Bosa, you could rush four consistently, drop the rest in coverage. You could still bring stunts. One thing with Brian Burns is he does have some coverage ability, so you can drop him into coverage in certain situations and blitz packages or nickel packages or whatever. So he has some versatility um, outside of just rushing the passer. He's decent as a run stuffer, but you got guys like Cleveland Farrell, Drake Jackson, who can rotate in and will rotate in, and it will give the opportunity to keep the 49ers defensive line fresh. And really, I think that's the if you really want to make this team really difficult to stop, you go out and get Brian Burns. No other offensive line will have be able to stop this defensive line with Hargrave, Eric rushing up the middle, Bosa and Burns on the outside. Good luck. The 49ers could walk into the Super Bowl probably with that defensive line alone. It would be so terrifying. So there's a lot of different things that the San Francisco 49ers could theoretically do here. Again, I do think the most logical, they roll it over, push it into next year, use that cap space to alleviate some cap headaches, also extend some players. That's the most logical. But of course, this is a Super Bowl window. They want to win now. Why not go out and make a splash and worry about the cap later? We can worry about the cap while they're holding their sixth ring, while they're holding up the Lombardi. Those questions become much easier. And obviously, this roster is stacked to win now. So why not? Why not inject it with as much talent as you can get? But you guys let me know. What do you guys think the San Francisco 49ers should do with all this cap space? Let me know in the comments below and make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.